Welcome to Channel Unveiling Mysteries. On the morning of September 15th, 2007, at Melbourne train station in Australia, commuters discovered a young Asian girl sitting alone and crying. They immediately sought assistance from staff, and during their communication, they realized the girl did not speak English. Initially, they thought she was lost and separated from her family, so they took her to the office. Because the girl was wearing clothes from the children's brand Pumpkin Patch, they nicknamed her Pumpkin, or Little Pumpkin. Staff then reviewed surveillance footage to find the girl's relatives. However, they uncovered an unusual scene. A middle-aged man with a suitcase entered the station with Little Pumpkin. He bent down and spoke a few words to her, then took an escalator and left, never returning. Staff concluded that Little Pumpkin might have been abandoned by the middle-aged man, so they reported it to the police. This incident, however, opened up a shocking case within the Chinese communities in Australia and the United States, and simultaneously exposed the crimes of a Chinese martial arts master. Through searches and other investigations, the police confirmed that Little Pumpkin, aged 3, was a New Zealand national, and the man who abandoned her was her father, a 53-year-old Chinese martial arts master named Shui Naiyin, hereinafter referred to as Mr. Shui. Australian police investigated flight records and found that on September 13, 2007, 2 days before the incident, Shui and his daughter flew from Auckland, New Zealand, to Melbourne, Australia, using New Zealand passports. On September 15th, just 2 hours after abandoning his daughter at Melbourne Station, Shui boarded an international flight alone to Los Angeles, USA. This action indicated that he intentionally abandoned his 3-year-old daughter. However, the strange thing was, if he only wanted to abandon his daughter, why didn't he do it directly in New Zealand? And where was her mother? Australian police forwarded the information they gathered to New Zealand police, hoping to find Little Pumpkin's mother. 2 days later, on September 17th, Auckland police arrived at Shu's home to conduct an investigation. They discovered that Little Pumpkin's mother had been missing for several days. Therefore, they immediately requested a search warrant and conducted a search of Shu's house that same evening. After 5 p.m., police found a female body in the trunk of Shu's Honda car. The victim was identified as Shu's wife, Liu Anan. She was wearing a nightgown without underwear. A pair of red panties was found next to the body. Additionally, a yellow tie was wrapped around her neck. The forensic doctor determined that Liu Anan had died a week earlier. Before her death, she had not been sexually assaulted, and the cause of death was asphyxiation. The yellow tie belonged to her husband. On the panties, DNA from 3 men was collected, one of which belonged to her husband, Shui. It is still unclear what happened after her death. Shui flew with his daughter to Australia on September 13th, then abandoned her and continued to fly to the US. All these unusual actions indicated that Shui was the prime suspect in this case. After entering the US, no one knew where Shui went. The incident immediately caused a stir in the Chinese community in New Zealand, as Shui was considered an important and influential figure. Born in 1954 in Julu, Hebei, China, and growing up in Liaoning, Shui developed a deep interest in martial arts from a young age. He started practicing martial arts at 8 and later received guidance from various masters. From then on, he gained some renown in the martial arts world in northern China. He claimed to be the 6th-generation inheritor of the Tai Chi sect. Of course, from a modern perspective, this title holds no special meaning. However, in that era, with the presence of many masters, this name carried significant weight. In 1983, at 29, he claimed to be ranked among the top 10 Chinese Hui martial arts masters and was honored as a grandmaster by the international martial arts community. Later, he wrote and published an autobiography, self-proclaimed King of Tai Chi. Under the adoration of his disciples, Xue opened a martial arts school to attract more students and earn tuition fees. Among his students were many celebrities in Northeast society, and he subsequently inherited fame and fortune. His career developed smoothly, and at this time he bought a car. All these were the result of his and his first wife's joint efforts. But gradually, his students discovered that their master was just a showman with no real combat experience. This became his biggest weakness. From then on, the number of students and the revenue of the martial arts school declined, and eventually could no longer be sustained. However, Xue heard that his martial arts were also highly regarded abroad, so he decided to go west. In 1996, Xue immigrated to Auckland, New Zealand. At that time, he was over 40 and had just divorced his first wife. Xue lived with his daughter in New Zealand. There, he opened a martial arts center called Dao Ne Gong Martial Arts Association. Each year, Xue organized several martial arts performances. He also tried to teach martial arts in the US, but was ultimately unsuccessful. The Chinese community had mixed opinions about Xue's martial arts skills and ethics. Many believed he was just boastful and lacked real talent. In summary, Xue always presented himself as a distinguished master, but not many students followed him, regardless of the country. The main reasons were his rude, violent personality and strong, controlling nature. Xue had repeatedly physically abused his daughter, causing her to experience many misfortunes during her upbringing. When he went to the US, he left his daughter, who was studying at home, uncared for and without responsibility. Additionally, memories from his previous marriage, where he frequently attacked his wife and children, also made his daughter feel unsafe. After she was able, his daughter decided to leave and never reappeared. During this time, Xue met a girl from China named Liu Anan. Liu Anan was born in Changsha, Hunan, in 1980. Her mother was a high-level corporate manager. Initially, Liu Anan had a good job in China, but she later decided to pursue higher education abroad. In 2002, at just 22 years old, she arrived in New Zealand. However, upon arrival, she discovered she had been scammed by an agency. Instead of enrolling in a reputable university, she was placed in a language school and had to pass an exam within 6 months or face deportation when her visa expired. This made improving her English difficult, especially since she rarely used English within the Chinese community. After a traffic accident, she was injured, and the 6 months passed quickly. With her visa nearing expiration and unable to pass the exam, she tried to extend it but was scammed again by the agency. Most of the money she had brought was lost, and facing a return to her home country, Liu Anan was unwilling to give up. The lonely and helpless girl decided to do everything she could to stay, immediately starting to live without a fixed address. In October 2002, unable to pay rent, Liu Anan sought cheaper accommodation. That's when she met Xue, her landlord, who offered affordable rent in Auckland. Learning of her predicament, Xu told her she didn't need to pay rent if she kept the house clean. Liu Anan was grateful for his generosity and moved in. The 48-year-old landlord Xue not only offered her a lifeline, but also sought to possess the young, beautiful girl who was 26 years his junior. Everyone was surprised that Liu Anan would quickly accept this man. Liu Anan was only 4 years older than Xue's daughter, and it's unlikely this was true love. If Xue's martial arts club had been doing well at the time, Liu Anan certainly wouldn't have faced financial difficulties while studying abroad. Their relationship developed rapidly. They began living together in early 2003, and by the time they married, Liu Anan was pregnant. That same year, she gave birth to a daughter, the little pumpkin, known in this case. By 2006, Xue was over 50. Even martial artists cannot avoid the decline of physical function, especially when they lack real skill. The martial arts club was now only a name, without value. In the same year, Liu Anan received her green card, granting her permanent residency and making her no longer completely dependent on her husband. This changed everything. She no longer fully obeyed her husband's commands and even refused to play cards with Shui. This angered Shui, who was already struggling in his career. He frequently resorted to physical abuse against his wife, forbidding her from leaving the house and preventing her from making friends freely. He even hid all her passports. In September 2006, unable to endure the domestic violence, Liu Anan decided to escape. She began searching for her passport, but instead found a gun. Frightened, she was discovered by Shui, which led to a beating. He then threatened her with a knife. Liu Anan quickly seized an opportunity to open the door and ran to a neighbor's house. After the neighbors called the police, they arrived and arrested Shui. In June 2007, as he was being taken away by the police, Shui continued to threaten Liu Anan, saying he would kill her. Liu Anan and her daughter were taken to a local women's shelter. Staff observed injuries to her lip and bruises around her eyes. The mother and daughter were provided with food and shelter for a month. During this time, she filed for a personal protection order. Shui faced charges, but Liu Anan eventually withdrew the lawsuit, unable to bring herself to send Shui to prison and hoping they could part amicably. In November 2006, Liu Anan took her daughter back to her hometown in Changsha, Hunan, and stayed there for 4 months. While she was away, Shui began dating another woman, but the relationship was short-lived. After their breakup, Shui contacted his wife multiple times, promising he would never use violence again and vowing to remarry her. This touched her. After 4 months in Changsha, Liu Anan brought her daughter back to New Zealand. By this time, the martial arts center business had completely collapsed. Shui started looking for other avenues. In late 2006, he entered the publishing industry, becoming the publisher of a Chinese newspaper called Fen Bao, later renamed City Boat. However, he didn't know how to run a newspaper or conduct business, ultimately leading to losses and significant debt. Shui immediately filed for bankruptcy. After this business failure, Shui found himself in the most difficult situation of his life. Just 3 months after Liu Anan returned to New Zealand, Shui resumed his violent behavior, assaulting and even threatening to kill her with a sword. Their daughter cried and ran to her mother, but was kicked away by Shui. After reporting to the police, the mother and daughter were once again provided with protective services. The police confiscated Shui's passport and sword and ordered him to complete a family relationship counseling course. It is documented that Liu Anan lived in fear of her abusive husband since their child was born and had previously taken out a protection order against him after a particularly violent attack. In July 2007, she had to flee with her daughter to a women's refuge in Wellington after Shui threatened to murder her. Shui was reportedly angry that his wife had given birth to a girl, as he desperately wanted a boy. He was also 25 years older than her, which she seemed embarrassed about, and she told at least one person that the only reason they married was so she could stay in New Zealand. However, Liu Anan had no hope of reconciliation and dared not continue living in Auckland. In June 2007, she took her daughter and rented a house in the capital, Wellington, beginning their separation. In July, she registered an account on a dating website under the pseudonym The Other Side of the Flower. In her blog on August 29th, she wrote an anonymous diary entry about her affair in Wellington. "He is lonely. I am lonely. 2 people burned in fire. So everything that needed to happen, happened. We lived happily as a family for almost 2 months." Sometime after leaving Wellington, she wrote, "A week before his wife returned, I drove away from our love home, away from his city." This diary entry clearly suggests that she had ended a relationship with a man. Shui also realized something was amiss when his wife was away for 2 months without paying any rent. This infuriated him. Shui complained to a Chinese friend from his hometown in Liaoning, saying that in his entire life, no one had ever deceived him like his wife, Liu Anan. She didn't genuinely want to live with him, but was using him to gain benefits, as he bore all the expenses in New Zealand with no income. Perhaps it was at this moment that the intention to kill arose in Shui's mind. Police confirmed that the last time Liu Anan was seen was around 4:00 p.m. on September 11, 2007, at a children's center in an Auckland suburb. After that, no one knew how Shui lured Liu Anan back home. On September 12th, Liu Anan's mother called, and Shui answered, telling his mother-in-law that Anan had gone to Wellington to attend a party. After Liu Anan's death, Shui went to the local authority and reclaimed his confiscated passport the next day, September 13th. He then took his daughter and flew to Melbourne, Australia. After contacting an airline booking company, he expressed a desire to book a flight for the same day to Los Angeles. The agent checked and found that the earliest flight would be on September 15th, 2 days later. Initially, Shui planned to flee to the US with his daughter, but he quickly changed his mind. Fleeing with a child would be a burden, so Shui decided to cruelly abandon the little girl. Following the incident, Shui's eldest daughter expressed a desire to care for her half-sister. The embassy quickly intervened and assisted in bringing Liu Anan's mother from Changsha to pick up her granddaughter and her daughter's ashes to return to their hometown. The Chinese community in New Zealand raised money to help Little Pumpkin, but her grandmother declined, feeling guilty about her daughter's plight. She had thought that going abroad would give her daughter a better life, but never expected such an outcome. Due to infrequent contact between mother and daughter, she was unaware of what Anan had experienced over the years, nor did she understand her daughter's marital life, never even having met Shui. Upon entering the US police issued a national warrant for Shui. At one point, Shui was listed among America's top 100 most wanted criminals, alongside Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. A year later, on February 28, 2008, at Kennesaw Mountain Park in suburban Atlanta, a Chinese restaurant chef named Wu Kuisin was reading a newspaper. U.S. police had offered a $10,000 reward for the capture of the fugitive named Shui. Upon seeing the photo, he was astonished. "Isn't that old Tang who works in the restaurant?" Wu Kuisin recalled suspicious things about him, such as his luggage never being unpacked, seemingly ready to move at any time. Old Tang was always vigilant while sleeping, waking up at any sound. Old Tang claimed to be from Hebei, but spoke with a different accent. Convinced this person was the criminal, he immediately called 4 fellow countrymen from Qingdao and explained the situation to them. Among these 5, 3 were restaurant delivery drivers. 1 was a former provincial football team player. 1 was a former soldier, and 1 had won a medal in wrestling. All were physically strong. However, they didn't speak English, so after 3 calls to the police without being able to clearly explain, they were forced to take matters into their own hands. The 5 immediately planned their actions. The smallest framed person, Wu Kuisin, went to find the police, while the other 4 proceeded to apprehend Old Tang. That same night, the 4 appeared at the apartment, pretending to go out to eat together. However, the criminal quickly sensed something was wrong and prepared to leave. The 4 decided to act immediately. The retired footballer moved forward to block the criminal, and one person pulled the criminal down with an attack. Simultaneously, the others rushed in and bound his hands and feet with leather straps. When the police arrived, Shui was tied up. In his wallet, they found a New Zealand driver's license, confirming his identity. The international manhunt was now officially successful. Subsequently, the criminal was extradited to New Zealand. The 5 individuals who participated in his capture received a $10,000 reward, but they decided to donate the entire amount to charity. They received praise from the media and the Chinese community. On June 2, 2009, the Auckland High Court in New Zealand officially opened the trial for Xue's case of murdering his wife and abandoning his daughter, a high-profile case. Xue was charged with murder. The trial process was very long, involving over 90 witnesses. Xue attempted to defend himself, claiming he was not the killer. Xue stated that he put the body in the trunk to evade responsibility and that he fled with his daughter to escape the manhunt. Since forensic experts found a mixed amount of DNA on Liu Anan's panties, with the main component belonging to Xue, but also 2 other small components belonging to 2 other men, this introduced uncertainty into the trial. Although Xue's DNA was found on the tie strap, a DNA sample from another man was also collected. Therefore, Xue's defense lawyer presented a surprising argument. The victim's blog when she was alive and her online dating website showed motives and the truth about her infidelity. Perhaps Liu Anan was not the victim of a murder, but died from excessive behavior during intercourse with others, causing her own death. Perhaps Liu Anan did not die at her home, but accidentally suffocated during intimacy with 2 other men. Ultimately, the mysterious man placed the victim in Xue's car trunk. Forensic experts stated that DNA can spread in certain ways, and even airborne saliva can carry DNA. It's also possible that DNA was mixed when clothes were washed together in a washing machine. The possibility that the victim had close contact with other men before her death is not ruled out. However, this could have happened at different times, and it still doesn't rule out Zhu's involvement in the case before he harmed his wife, Liu Anan. Their marriage was already riddled with violence and jealousy. After several weeks of trial, on June 20, 2009, a 12-person jury delivered a guilty verdict with 7 concurring votes. On July 31st, the Auckland High Court in New Zealand sentenced the Chinese criminal Xue Naiyin, in the case of murdering his wife and abandoning his daughter, to life imprisonment with a minimum of 12 years before being eligible for parole. Xue was very dissatisfied with this, shouting in court that it was unfair, partly because all members of the jury were women, which he felt made the trial unfair. For many years afterward, he continued to insist on his innocence. He wrote an autobiography in prison titled "I Am Not a Murderer," in which he portrayed his wife, Liu Anan, in a terrible light. He still refused to confess to the murder. In 2020, at the age of 66, Xu's attitude surprisingly changed when he admitted to killing his wife due to her betrayal and expressed constant remorse. However, it's possible that this change was due to his 12-year imprisonment term having passed, and he only wanted to be released early by feigning remorse. But Xue's intentions were discovered. Psychological evaluations also indicated a high risk of reoffending, so his parole request was denied. In life, there are stories full of tragedy and heartache, and the story of Xue and Anan is one of them. From betrayal to facing death, it's a story of crime, regret, and the fight for justice. But behind the consequences of crime are opportunities to learn and move forward. Whether Xue ultimately receives forgiveness or not, his story remains a warning about the power of outburst and the consequences of our actions. Let this story be a reminder to us that no matter how life is, we always have the ability to choose. Our decisions can have a profound impact on the lives of others and ourselves. Think carefully before making decisions and always maintain kindness and respect for others. That is truly the path to happiness and peace. Don't forget to subscribe to the Unveiling Mysteries channel to always receive the latest videos that help you achieve success in life. Thank you for following and accompanying the channel.